Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our Big Brother 19 live feed update for August 29th. We're almost done with the month, guys. What are we going to do? I am your host, Taran Armstrong, and today I have brought you somebody, it's not her day, but she's here anyway. It's Liana Boraas. How you doing, Liana?
I'm doing well. I decided if we mixed up the live feed updates and I showed up on a Tuesday, maybe this will have some sort of butterfly effect where we can change events in the house. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, if Liana can be on Tuesdays, then anybody could put up Paul, right? I mean, that's just direct correlation.
Yeah, obviously. So that's the logic that I'm going for.
Yes. So pretty exciting day yesterday. If you didn't listen to the roundtable, there was a lot of fights, a lot of craziness, a lot of ugliness. So we're going to get into all of that today on our update. Let's get started. We had right in the beginning of the day, we got Jason. He's not using the veto. Before that, he did talk to Raven, and it really did seem like he was pretending very, very much that he was going to be using the veto on Raven. She felt very good about it. They go into the veto ceremony. He does not use the veto, much to the complete shock of Raven and Matt. And when the feeds come back, Jason is in the storage room with Alex and Paul, and they're pretending to have a fight because Alex is trying to feign ignorance of this move. She's trying to pretend that she's berating him, and so he's in the storage room for a lengthy period of time. Meanwhile, Matt and Raven are outside, and Raven is going off. She's yelling like, "Oh, be a man! Don't piss on my head and tell me it's raining." I don't understand why, what makes sense about that, but she said that many times. And then Matt was just like, Matt was all smiles. He was, for a minute there, I thought Matt was going to be like, fine with this. Like, it's cool. Like, whatever. I mean, he is a coward and he's not a man for hiding in the storage room, but it's the way it goes. I'm all smiles. But the second Jason leaves the storage room, all hell breaks loose, Liana.
Yeah, so it really did seem that Matt couldn't care less. I mean, the veto wasn't used. Raven's kind of this weird mix between crying and angry, and Matt is just kind of like hanging out like, okay, well, I guess this is our fate. He's sort of like, it's, signed, sealed, delivered, whatever, it's all done. But then exactly like you said, as soon as Jason leaves the storage room, then this is when we start to see a major blow up between Raven, Matt, and Jason, with everyone else just sort of observing the situation. And Matt starts to just completely lose it. This seems like a completely different person. I don't know where this guy came from. I'm telling you, he starts shrieking at Jason. The sounds that came out of this man, I did not know that was possible from him. I mean, his vocal cords, I didn't think were wired that way, but he just completely loses it.
Yeah, I mean, it was ridiculous. It was, again, it's the first time we've seen Matt act in this way at all. And as I mentioned on the roundtable, it's something that, it was interesting because we've seen so many other people fight. But this was a completely different style of fight, which is just like Matt being completely incredulous at everything that Jason was saying. Like, he legitimately, the way that Matt fights is that he's just, he cannot believe a word that's coming out of Jason's mouth, no matter what he says. And he's, what? What are you even saying, homie? And he's saying homie and bro a lot. I don't understand that.
Stick to your core values.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I feel like that's something that should be on a bumper sticker. Like, maybe he can market this afterwards. But there was a lot of this hand above, his arms above his head motion of just what? Oh my gosh, it was hilarious. And then, of course, there was this weird fixation on Jason's testicles and his manhood, which I thought was very fitting, considering that it was day 69 in the house. And he just goes off about a man wouldn't have the ball, put on your balls. Why are you in the storage room? Strap on your balls and uncross your legs, be a man. So this is very interesting to see. I didn't quite understand it, but it was enjoyable to watch.
Yeah. Pooya in the chat says, a very aggressive frat guy style. It very much, it was like he was arguing with a frat bro. What are you even saying, bro? I don't what? Why are you saying this? Where are your balls, dude? It's just ridiculous.
Yes, homie. I don't I guess like Jason he's a rodeo clown, right? So like from In Living Color, like homie don't play that is what he's gonna call him homie. I don't know. Like
that's definitely the reasoning.
I got it. It was very bizarre. But then, so like after all of this yelling, then we just have 5 minutes of complete silence. Complete silence, which was incredibly awkward and just very bizarre. I mean, just this whole like series of maybe like 20 minutes that this occurred over was just sort of felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. Like I didn't really understand what was happening, but I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, as Brent mentioned last night, like nobody wanted to be the first one to leave that room. And part of that is because Matt was so mad at Jason for not, quote unquote, facing the music like a man. So like Jason wasn't allowed to leave or he'd be yelled at even more. So he has to just sort of sit there and like nobody else feels like they can leave because they can't be hiding either. Like they need to be here. They need to make sure nobody's like saying anything bad about them. So it was very quiet for a while. And then just like Matt, you could tell Matt was just like searching for like, what else can I yell about? And he eventually asks you were one of the votes against me, right? Like you'll admit to that. I actually think he asked Kevin first. And Kevin was like, no way. No. I was not one of the votes. And then he went around the room and everybody said no, except for he goes to Jason and he goes to everyone. And they're like, nope, not me. I voted for Mark. Yep. Didn't vote for you. I voted for Mark. He goes to Jason and Jason's like, listen, what? It's a yes or no answer. What? It's just, he's not okay with it. Jason eventually admits to the fact that he was one of the votes to evict Matt. Sorry. It is very difficult. So that's out in the open now. But Alex did deny it in that conversation. So that was the Matt and Jason fight. I was surprised that Matt didn't go for like the it's no wonder you got no balls. You're riding bulls all day. Well, I guess all right, that's what I would have gone for if I was fixating on somebody's balls. That's what I would have gone for.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that like being clever was really something that was on Matt's mind. So considering this was a frat boy type fight, so.
So then we had Paul really getting everyone rowdied up against Kevin because Paul wants to control this narrative and make sure that Kevin is on the outs at this point. So this starts a whole fight with Kevin.
Yeah, so I think that you talked about this on the roundtable. It was, how Paul wants to sort of craft this narrative around the fight that's happening. Because if you continue to have Matt and Jason go after each other, it's entirely possible that some dirt is going to come out against Paul, and Paul doesn't want anything exposed. So by turning everything kind of against Kevin, that will isolate Kevin on the outs and sort of prevent these pairs from fighting and, keeping Paul out of trouble.
Yeah, and so I mean, he really gets people all fired up. Josh in particular is like very anti-Kevin. Christmas is fired up too, and it really all culminates into this whole fight that starts between Kevin and Christmas. Christmas is really just looking to pick a fight with Kevin. It's about Kevin supposedly was like, "Oh, Christmas, are you gonna go go swimming in the pool?" And Christmas was like, no, of course I'm not going to go swimming. I've got a cast on my foot. I broke it. I haven't been able to swim all season long. Why are you asking me questions you know the answer to? What's happening here? Why are you being so mean to me, Kevin? And he's like, whoa, I just meant like, are you going to dangle your feet in the water? Like, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. But Christmas is not having like, why would you say that then? Why didn't you say that? Why didn't you say dangle your feet? Why did you say swimming? Swimming. And so
Well, that was the thing, was that it just sort of came out of nowhere. That was great job, Taran. It was like everything had sort of calmed down, and then all of a sudden we see this yelling from Christmas, and she's just, like, why would you ask me questions that you already know the answer to? That was like the basis of her entire argument, which was just kind of bizarre. And she just goes off and just starts yelling, and then, of course, right, like Josh can't help but get involved, and so now we have Josh also joining in this fight against Kevin.
Yeah, so Josh just butts into this, starts, ranting about some sort of nonsense, and so then Kevin is like, "No, you're wrong, Christmas, right? He's wrong. He doesn't know idea what he's talking about." And Christmas is like, "Yeah, I mean, Josh, I don't even remember what Josh was saying at that point, but I remember that he was wrong." And so Kevin's like, "You were wrong. Why are you coming at me like this?" And Josh is like, "Well, fine. I'm wrong. That's fine. But still though." And Kevin's like, "Dude, apologize. What'd you do that for?" And he's like, "What? Why would I apologize to a liar? Because you're a liar." What are you saying? It's because again, like, they were just looking for anything. And even when he found out that, like, there was nothing to yell about him for, Josh was like, "All right, well, I'm gonna come up with something to yell at him for, and that's, you're a liar. You've got the $25,000, don't you?" And Kevin's like, What are you talking about?" He's like, "What did you tell me? What did you tell me about the $25,000?" Kevin says, "Well, you told me you've got the $25,000." And Josh is like, "No, you swear on your family, And Kevin says, "Whoa, no. You do not mention my family." And then it gets very, very heated.
Right. So so that was, I mean, the $25,000 was actually the one piece of, like, evidence in this situation, apart from just picking, stuff out of nowhere, just trying to make an argument, like, out of thin air. And so then this is where, exactly like you said, as soon as the family comes into play, we see Kevin move forward, grab a glass, and feeds cut. So I think this is the third time now that we've had somebody lunge forward, grab or reach an object, and then feeds cut. And then feeds were down for an hour at least. I can't remember, but they were down for a significant portion of time.
Yeah, I mean, this again, like, there have been at least 3 times when the feeds have cut, and we've had to think, did somebody get ejected? Because the last time the feeds cut, when somebody came at somebody in that way, that I can remember, was Willie Hance, and he got ejected. And so, I mean, we had Mark grabbing the pans and going at Josh. We had Cody getting up in the backyard and strutting toward Josh. And then we had Kevin grabbing a cup and threatening to smash it over Josh's head. There is a common denominator in all these situations.
It's like, I feel like there's something in common with all these 3 situations.
Yep. Brooke in the chat says, "This is why they don't get alcohol," and I got to agree with that decision.
Yeah.
So the feeds come back, and Kevin is kind of on an apology tour. He has a conversation with Christmas where they clear the air, but after he does apologize, they're still all talking behind his back. Again, I mentioned this on the roundtable, but like it was very much the thing where it was like they picked a fight with him, they riled him up to the point where he lost his shit, and then they were like, "Can you believe Kevin? His true colors came out." I mean, just like Cody and Mark and all of them, he's truly disgusting. This is just kind of, this is their gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly reminiscent of what happened with Mark, especially even considering the whole apology tour nonsense. Like, it was, you back somebody into a corner and then you're shocked when they react. Okay, sure, guys, like, that's all right. And then, Kevin and Josh are having this conversation, and, Josh seems to be the one with the high ground, and he's saying, "Oh, I never lied in this house. I never antagonized anybody." You're like, okay, Josh, sure. But because he's in this power position, he can say things like this. And Kevin is just the one on the outs who seems to, be the one looking for some type of, reconciliation.
Yeah. And, it works. We got Raven saying, man, Kevin is the reason my boyfriend is going home. I don't know how or why she thinks that, but she's saying that. It's the atmosphere of the house. It just it seeps in, and she's now believing it. It's all Kevin's fault. Everything is Kevin's fault. We have Alex again, like just wanting to just antagonize him as much as possible. She decides to steal his slop because. And we'll talk about this just a little bit later, but Matt has decided that he is no longer a have-not because he's already going home, so he's not going to be eating slop. Kevin is the only one left as a have-not and will be eating slop, so she decides to throw out his slop, and he doesn't know how to make any slop because he loves people making food for him, so he doesn't know how to get any more, and Alex, of course, blames Raven for throwing out the slop, so Kevin doesn't know at the moment, but Kevin was very upset about this.
Well, I actually want to go back to the whole fact that Raven is now putting the blame on Kevin for all of this, because I remember when that conversation was happening, just thinking like, what are these people on? How on earth? You were just yelling at Jason for not using the veto. But I guess this weird plan of Kevin said something to convince Jason actually worked, at least on Raven and Matt, and they seem to be convinced of that. So that was like just very bizarre, like in and of itself. But then when it came to Alex is... So she said that she wants to make Kevin's life miserable. And when Josh says you don't need to make his life miserable, then maybe you should think that you're towing the line, because Alex thinks that like this is fun. She wants to be able to torture Kevin in some way. And apparently part of that goes along with throwing out his slop, which is just, he can make more. Like I don't quite understand how this is like solid logic, but this is what Alex has come up with.
Yeah, so we eventually get Jason and Paul helping Kevin out to get him more slop. Which I mean, really, like they get to look like the good guys there. Yes, then moving on to Matt, he has decided he's no longer a have-not. He wants to get as many penalty votes as he can to ensure that he goes home. He's going to eat his cereal. He's going to sleep with his Raven, and he's going to take his hot showers. Very important to him.
Yes. Well, I think that might be the order of importance to him as well, although maybe flip Raven and hot showers. But yeah, this is what Matt has decided to do. I mean, essentially, he had talked about this before, right? And we had kind of questioned, but when he's actually on the block, is he going to go through with this? Is he going to try and get penalty votes? Turns out the answer is yes. And he's going to try and rack up as many as possible. He officially has won for eating as a have-not. He took a warm shower and he slept in the Rose room, not in the have-not bed, although at least at the moment there's no ramifications of that. I don't know whether or not Big Brother is only going to give him one penalty vote or actually give him multiple, depending on, how many infractions he goes through with.
Yeah, they did. They gathered everyone up, and Jason announced that Matt officially has one penalty vote cast against him, so the vote currently stands at 1-0. I mean, there you go. He really needs his sleeping in beds, his showers. I mean, a lot of people feel like it's very disrespectful to the game. I know Brent feels that way. I know Kevin feels that way. Kevin even was like, this clown is disrespecting the game. We should send Raven out instead and force this guy to stay. Of course, that doesn't really do anything because Paul is in control of this game and not Kevin, but Kevin's not happy with it.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Well, we might actually see, much like Sari was voted out with no votes against her, maybe Matt will also be voted out with no votes against him, but just for a very different reason.
Yes. Pooya in the chat says, really not a good season for my sensei Kidwell. His namesake and his acquaintance really dampening the good Alex name. Yeah. Alex, truly the person that ruined this season.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. We need a scapegoat, right? That's what everybody does in the Big Brother house.
Yeah, we need a scapegoat. So we've got Kevin talking to Jason. He talks to Jason throughout the day, Jason is his only lifeline at this point. He does talk to Paul, but Paul is pretty obviously just kind of like all right, Kevin, come on.
Mhm.
Shoo. So, I mean, I already made that sort of comparison, that high school, middle school comparison where it's like, oh, he's like the nerdy friend and Paul is like, just get out of here. But it's even more so with Jason where it's like when he talks to Jason, Jason's like actually friends with him. He actually likes him. He's like, yeah, Kevin, I like you. Like, we're good. But then like all of his other friends are like, dude, stay away from Kevin. What are you doing with Kevin? He's like, oh yeah, Kevin, he's the worst. But then he goes and talks to Kevin. He's like, dude, like, you gotta chill. What are you doing? He's just like in that weird position. And Kevin is trying very hard to get Jason to be like, dude, stop Alex from coming at me. And Jason's like, I'll do my best. But it's not really working. So this relationship between Kevin and Jason is very interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of not surprised. Like, I knew how close Kevin and Jason were, although, you know, I mean, he's just experiencing peer pressure. Like, that's what's happening with Jason. And he knows in his heart, I believe, that Kevin is someone that he's close to and somebody who cares about him and somebody whose relationship is very important. But then when he gets with all of his other friends, they just start ragging on him. He has said Jason has said some very unfortunate things recently about Kevin and Kevin's family. And it's really kind of sad to see, but it's middle school. Like, this is just middle school dynamics.
Yeah, it really, really is, which is ridiculous. You know, I mean, usually when we're talking about Big Brother and we're talking about like how it's an unfortunate situation because they're all acting like they're in high school. This season is middle school, and we've regressed.
Actually, elementary school could be really fun because that's when kids are like, you know, before they've started all of those politics. So they're just like getting into silly fights. That could be very interesting.
I feel like Big Brother 16 might have been elementary school.
With like, oh my gosh, with like one adult in Derek.
Yeah, exactly.
Like just corralling the children's.
And Cody was just like the cool kid. All right, so we have Paul, Josh, and Christmas talking about their plans. They ultimately decide, all right, who are we taking to the Final Four with us? Is it going to be Raven or is it going to be Kevin? And Raven's performance in this recent HOH competition, coming in third place, has really sort of scared people. And then, of course, the veto competition, she came in second place. So people are starting to worry about her competition ability. And so they're thinking, all right, we probably want to take Kevin to the Final Four with us, but we're still going to pretend that Kevin is our target because they're still trying to get Alex to throw the HOH to Josh or somebody else so that they can take a shot at Alex. But Josh is like pushing so hard. I mean, he just yelled at Kevin. So Alex obviously thinks Josh is after Kevin, but secretly they're going to take him to the Final Four.
Mm-hmm, right, exactly. And I think that that's fair. I think that Raven has demonstrated like a modicum of challenge prowess. So I think that it's okay to be, to want to take her out and to want to take Kevin, who really hasn't done well in, pretty much any challenge. The thing is that, so going into next week, we kind of have an interesting situation because originally it was like everybody's going to try to throw it to everybody. So we were going to have some sort of like the temptation competition where it's like, who can be the worst? It sort of reminds me of the Monty Python skit, like Upper Class Twit of the Year, where they're all just like being a complete disaster. That's like what I envisioned would happen. But now it seems that Josh and Christmas are actually maybe okay with winning this HOH. And that would mean that they need, like you said, have to have Alex throw the HOH and then also to possibly have Raven throw the HOH. Although I think they would also be okay with Raven winning because they really want to take a shot at Alex and Jason because they still are the two biggest threats to them moving, or like to that group moving forward. Although I will mention that Josh's fantastic plan to put up, if they win HOH, Josh wants to put up Alex and Jason and then tell them that they're going to backdoor Kevin. I wonder where we've heard this before.
It would be pretty great if they bought that and then when Josh doesn't do it.
Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised.
Could you imagine Jason like, Josh, why'd you pretend you weren't going to do this?
I did Josh in the storage room.
Why'd you hide?
Why'd you hide? Strap on your balls. Be a man. Yeah, I would imagine that exact same fight to play out. That would be pretty amusing.
And I definitely now want Monty Python skits to be comparisons to every situation every time we have you on, Liana. So,
all right, I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. So they talk. They want the final four. Christmas is then Christmas tells Paul because Josh had this conversation with her the other night that he was uncomfortable with what Paul was doing, and he was uncomfortable with this idea of them having a fake fight because he feels like it's just there to protect Paul. Christmas tells Paul that Josh is uncomfortable. Josh needs to be very careful because Christmas is starting to leak this information. He's talking about doubting Paul a lot, and we'll talk about how he's doing it again later tonight. But for now, Christmas is letting Paul know that Josh is uncomfortable with this. Paul doesn't seem too concerned at the moment, though he should, because Josh, this is his one blind spot, and he's starting to get some clues. But so really what all Paul says is like, all right, that's whatever. We'll just do it. You and I will just do it then. We'll do a fake fight. And I think Paul's just like, why would anyone feel I did this with Victor? Like, we're just fake fighting. It's what we do. So they're gonna try and do that at some point. But knowing Paul, like it'll just fall through. Like, I mean, that's what happened with the Victor thing. Like he did the fake fight and then he came back and it was like, oh, we're friends again.
Yeah, that worked really well. It was like a total of 12 hours. And then all of a sudden they were having friendship chats again.
Yeah.
I just envision that's what's going to happen. But yeah, the biggest thing for me is that, it's not so much about the fact that Josh doesn't want to have the fight. It's that Josh is questioning you, and you know this, Paul. Like, this is maybe something that should go on your register when you have other people who are going to be very loyal to you, and you have somebody who is, outright is questioning your behavior. So, we'll see where that ends up going.
Yes. So they also discuss a plan, and Paul does this all the time. I usually don't mention every time he does it because it happens so often, but this one actually turned into something. Paul usually what he does is he discusses with his allies, like, I'm going to go make a final two deal with Kevin to keep him calm. And everyone's like, yeah, you go do that, Paul. So Paul and Christmas discuss this idea that Paul is going to go and make a deal with Alex and Raven and be like, I'm going to get you girls as far as I can. And they're like, this is a great plan. We'll keep them comfortable, keep us safe. And that, again, is going to sort of come back to him a little bit later on in the night. But first, we have to talk about Raven and Matt. Raven tells Matt that if Jason had really wanted to make a move this week, he would have put Paul up on the block. Whoa, where did this come from?
But that would have been so bad because Paul is one of her ride or dies.
Yes, Matt's like, Jason is stupid if he thinks Paul isn't against him. And I'm like, oh my God, are they recognizing that they have information that could change the game? And then no, because Raven's like, thank God it didn't happen though. He's one of my ride or dies. I feel like you don't really grasp the concept of a ride or die if you have more than one.
Yeah, right. I don't, they don't have a dictionary in the house, so I'm sure they can update Webster's and they'll look it up later. But the biggest thing is just that, Matt and Raven have talked about how the two hinky votes were probably Alex and Jason. Like, they also have what I want to call a moment of clarity, but probably is more like a moment of lucidness. Like, I don't really quite know how to describe it, but they are thinking through these things and seem to have some sort of sense of what's going on. Just they don't act on it and completely either argue their way out of it, like they did with the Paul-Jason dynamic, or they just decide that, it's not that big a deal. The fact that Jason and Alex were the two that voted Matt to leave the house.
Yes. Meanwhile, the chat is killing it here. Pooya says, I feel like as a community, we really dropped the ball by not making the shownate's name Rat.
Yeah.
Dominic says, Raven has inverted logic.
It's just as dangerous as the inverted spine.
Yes. And Stephanie points out, oh no, the mic curse of Big Brother 19.
I know. It's a real disaster.
Happens to everyone at some point during Big Brother 19. Yes, they're talking, and they don't buy that Alex wasn't in on this plan to not use the veto. They're like, Jason follows Alex's lead in everything. They do not buy this idea that Alex is completely innocent in this. And because of that, they are, as you're mentioning, recognizing that Alex was probably the other vote against Matt. And
it took him long enough.
Yeah.
There were two votes.
So that's where they stand. They're still fully on board, and Raven is just like, thank God I have Paul and Christmas and Josh in this game. I can trust them. They'll get me there. So
yeah, they'll take care of her. Like they're going to be the ones to protect her once Matt leaves.
Yes. So then we have Paul and Christmas talking to Alex about the plans for next week. Who do we put up next to Kevin? Alex is like, oh, I'll do it. I'll go up next to Kevin next week. That sounds like something that is a good idea for me. And they're like, oh, yeah, that would be great, Alex. You can go right up next to Kevin, and we totally won't vote you out.
Yeah, we'll definitely use the veto on you and put up someone else, which okay, I get maybe you say you want to throw the HOH. First of all, not a great idea. But then you want to say you want to go up. Like, I don't know if these people have any sense of pattern recognition, because if you just take a moment to think, what has happened the past couple of weeks where the pawn Matt is now going to go home. So I really don't understand like how Alex thinks, but clearly it is not the same as myself. So it's really hard to predict her behavior. I should just think of like what I would do and then assume that she's going to do the exact opposite.
Basically, and like after she leaves, Paul is talking to Christmas just like, seriously? She's seriously going to throw the HOH and then volunteer to be on the block against, like, is this really happening? Is this real life?
Is this real life? Wow. It's amazing. I mean, again, and I think that he should rightly be questioning what's happening because it's not in her interest at all. And I think that that's, you make the assumption that people are going to act in their best interest. And this is like exact opposite of her best interests. So this is why this makes absolutely no sense. But Alex seems to be on board with it.
Yeah, I feel like in any other season, like if we were like, wow, can you believe Paul is buying this from Alex? Like, can you believe he actually believes that she's going to throw the HOH and volunteer to be a pawn? What a dummy Paul is. And I feel like that's what he's scared of because he's like, this is way too good to be true. But I'm pretty sure it's actually true. And I don't know how to reconcile that in my mind.
Yeah, right. I mean, exactly. That's what I'm saying is that there's a way that I think and the way that I think people should behave in the house. And since Alex operates the complete opposite of that, it's very, very difficult to think about.
Yes. So then we have Paul talking to Josh about this idea that he's going to go to Raven and Alex and say, like, oh, I'm going to try to take you guys as far as I can, make sort of like a fake deal with them. It'll be great. It'll work really well. And you can immediately tell, right? You can immediately tell Josh is uncomfortable with this idea. Mm-hmm. Like, Paul should recognize this because it's very obvious. Josh is just kind of like, all right, yeah, I mean, you can do whatever you want to do. That's fine with me. That's fine. And Paul's like, oh, cool, yeah, okay, I got it. I got permission.
Well, Josh is the person that wears everything on his sleeve. I mean, all of his emotion is just out there, and you can tell when he's uncomfortable in a certain situation. I don't know if it's Alex's loyalty that's blinded Paul, so now he just assumes that everybody else is on board. But, Josh is clearly uncomfortable here and clearly is not okay with the things that Paul's doing.
Yes, and as soon as Paul leaves the room, Josh is like, why is he making all these side deals? I don't understand. If he's got our backs, why does he need so many side deals? It's just he's trying to cover all angles, and that's just that doesn't make sense. I don't like this, Paul. This is like very similar to what we saw with Steve and Vanessa, where Steve was, I think, a bit more aware at the start, and he was very much like using Vanessa throughout the game. But there was a moment where he was like, man, Vanessa really is a Derek, and I need to make sure I take her out. So right now, Josh isn't quite there yet. I think he's a little bit behind the curve in terms of where Steve was, but he is on that same path where he's like, Paul is manipulating everyone, and yes, it's benefiting me right now, but like he at some point he has to start to recognize like that does affect me long term.
Yeah, right, exactly. And Josh recognizes that Paul is having these pairs take shots at each other. And so it's really, really refreshing to have somebody actually start to think through and have logical reasons other than just gut feeling, like actually recognizing the dynamics of the situation and realizing why this could be bad, for their gameplay. And Josh is that person this season.
Yeah. So, I feel like we have a very similar structure to these updates every day, where it's once or twice a week we've got a big fight to talk through, and then we've got like Paul, getting everything back on track, and then Josh doubting him at the end of the day, and that's like. That's a typical day in the Big Brother 19 house.
Yeah, this is like Groundhog's Day, but awful. Like, where's Bill Murray, please?
Yes, John Densford says, if Paul catches on, Josh could become a Final Four casualty. And this is right too, because as much as we say like, oh, Josh catching on to what Paul is doing is a danger to Paul, it's also a danger to Josh, because if Paul eventually does stop having this blind spot, he will recognize that he needs to take Josh out pretty soon. I mean, obviously Jason or Alex are the bigger threats here in terms of competitions, so he needs to take them out first. But if we're talking about like from Paul's perspective, what should he do if he knows everything? He should probably take Josh out at Final Five. It should be Josh first, leaving Raven and Kevin in. Raven will be loyal to Paul down to the end. He should keep her in. Kevin, without Jason there, will be loyal to Paul, I'm pretty sure. But Kevin does have a little bit of a mind of his own, but he's got nobody else there. He just threatened to bash Josh's head in with a cup. Christmas was just yelling at him for no reason. So there's really not, and he hates Raven. So by default, I mean, he's probably got his Kevin. Paul probably has Kevin's loyalty there.
Right. I mean, it's this kind of this sort of a balance between who's loyal to you versus this competition prowess. Because if somebody is going to be loyal to you, up until Final Three, and they're good at competitions, that is one type of threat. Because then when you get to Final Three, that's going to be a problem for you. But if you have somebody who is maybe so-so at competitions, but is, bent against getting you out, then that is still a threat, but in a different way, because you then run the risk of going out at, say, Final Six or Final Five or Final Four, versus not being taken to the Final Two or being able to win out at the end. So it's just Paul is sort of needs to, if he had all the information, would need to weigh the pros and cons of these different threats and then decide which one is the best to take out. I agree with you. I do still think that Alex and Jason are probably the more appropriate to take out now. But then Josh is somebody who Paul needs to be worried about come Final Five.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it right now, Paul's current plan to get people out is Jason first, and then I believe Alex next. And then he's talking to Christmas and Josh and saying it's going to be Raven after that. And then, Kevin will be in their Final Four. But what it should be is Jason, Alex, and then take out Josh. And then take out Kevin and go to the Final Three with Raven and Christmas. I feel like he's a guarantee to win at that point.
Yeah, I would think so, because, and Raven might be stupid enough to take him. I mean, there are a number of different factors that are a benefit to Paul if he ends up going to the Final Three with Christmas, Raven, and himself.
Exactly. I mean, Christmas can't compete in those competitions, so he's already, in that final competition against Raven, who probably would take him no matter what. And then even if for like a crazy reason Christmas is able to compete and gets to that final competition, she also probably takes Paul, unless she's mad that Paul betrayed Josh. In which case that could be dangerous, but she's probably not going to be able to compete in that competition anyway, so it probably doesn't matter. And that Paul would be able to villainize Christmas in Raven's eyes and be like, she's going to beat us. Everybody loves her. She's got the sob story. She can out sob story you, Raven. She's got the broken foot. You only had a stitches in your foot.
We already know that Raven is threatened of Christmas's injury, because whenever Christmas would start complaining, Raven starts limping. So,
Niki says he might be worried about the jury giving Raven the win because of her disease. But I don't know. I feel like they've talked a lot about this at this point, and it's hard to see that happening. I don't know though. I mean, it is more of a worry than somebody without a disease, I guess.
Yeah, right. Well, I think that it's the concern, right, is that Raven is going to get all this sympathy. But I think we've seen over the transition that's happened in the house, where Raven has gone from getting the sympathy to everybody being okay making fun of her. The only concern would be, okay, well, what about Cody and Mark and Elena? Where are those votes going to fall? Are they going to fall on Raven? But considering that Matt and Raven had the huge blowout with those remaining couples, it's possible that Paul's not so concerned about Raven in the final two.
Yes, Bridget says the final part of the final HOH should be a true or false about Raven's illnesses. And I feel like that's not fair to Raven because she'd lose that competition.
I was going to say, yeah, I think Raven would actually lose that.
Yeah. Okay, so that is our update for the day. We will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern to update you on everything that's happened on the feeds today. We will be live after the Wednesday night episode to recap everything that's happening there. Not sure who the guest is for that one yet, but we will be working on it. And then Thursday, we do have Ramses, who's going to be talking all about his experience on Big Brother 19 and what he thinks of everyone in the house. So that'll be a lot of fun. I just dropped the Melissa Denny episode of the Taran show. Already seeing that people are loving it, so thank you guys. It was a lot of fun talking to Melissa, so I hope you guys enjoy that one. Make sure you check it out. You got to know who Melissa is. She's on these podcasts all the time. Yes, lots of fun there. And we just did the roundtable last night. You can check that out. Anything else?
Nope, I think that's it. You pretty much covered it.
All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Armstrong Taran. Liana is at Liana Boraas. I had her spell it before, so just go back and find the one where she spelled it, maybe.
Yeah, that's way easier than having me just do it now. So
is it?
It's L-I-A. It's Lianaboraas. So it's very complicated. 11 letters, I know.
Yes, very complicated. I totally knew that. I was gonna do it for you.
Right.
Yeah.
There'll be a quiz next time. So.
Oh no. All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will see you next time.